Game number 2. Big games today. Upsets. I'm feeling it today. V3 might get a win. We've already had Axis pick up the dub. Maybe it's V3's turn. Who knows? We'll find out very shortly. But getting into this game, these two teams met on day 7. And to be fair, it wasn't particularly close. The Hawks did pick up a pretty easy win against V3. They drafted some nice stuff. They had the Silas. It all looks pretty good. It's all shiny. But RMC, do you feel like maybe V3 have made a few improvements since day 7?
Oh, since day 7, Jerry, oh no. I feel like V3 have lost their way a little bit, actually, the last couple of days. If anything, they've looked messier. When I watch V3 play, I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh has been their win condition. And yet, I feel like they've not been playing around Yu-Gi-Oh. So it feels like V3 is not on the same page with what they want to do. And that's not what we saw coming into the split. Coming into the split, I think V3 actually played better in the first 5 days of the season.
Well, we are going to get onto YouTube in a second. Before that, though, I want to quickly talk about the Hawks because we've had a lot of, I think, general thoughts about the Hawks, and especially about their bot lane. I think Marvel has been under quite a lot of scrutiny from just the eyes of anyone watching the LJL. And I was like, you know what? The Hawks, they're performing better than we expected. You know, they're third. Why would that be? Are maybe other teams not performing as well? That could be true. Maybe the Hawks are actually performing better. Maybe specific players are actually performing better. So I'd look at the stats, all right? The damage percentage is what I had a little gander at. In spring, we did see that Marvel did 26.9% of the damage. However, Dasher did 26.5%. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Pretty split between the two. However, in summer, the numbers have gone down for the side of Marvel. It's gone to 24.3%. Whereas Dasher has gone up to 32.1%. But as our graphics have been brought up on the screen, we're going to look at Yu-Gi-Oh versus Dasher as well. He is popping off, right? 32% of the damage. But on the flip side, Yu-Gi-Oh is doing an absolute madness with 33.7%. But the good participation is a little bit different, as you can see. The unique champions also a little bit different. But the solo kills are the same. Yu-Gi-Oh is matching Dasher on solo kills.
Hold up. One second. So this is the thing that bugs me about V3's playstyle, right? Yu-Gi-Oh highest damage percent share of all players right now. Dasher second highest. Yu-Gi-Oh is doing all the damage, and he's got 45% kill participation. What does that tell you?
You know, I think V3 got burned a little bit in spring with some of Yu-Gi-Oh's carry play. I seem to remember in game 1 of the split, debuted on Syndra. There was some bad mispositioning, couldn't really get the damage out. And I think maybe they're still reflexively harping on something that is no longer the material reality. Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely stepping up, and I agree wholeheartedly. They need to put him in a better position to use his skill and his capability to carry.
Yeah, he's played 4 different champions right now. That is Swain, Corki, Zoe, and Lissandra. I definitely prefer the carry side of it over the non-carry side of it. But we know that Dasher is really good at Silas. Do you pick? Do you ban? And if you do pick something against it, what are you going to go for? I'll start with the first one, the pick or ban. I'm going to ask you for the dodge. Do you pick or ban Silas against Dasher?
It's entirely dependent. This is such a cop-out, but it's entirely dependent on how the draft leads up to it, right? If you have Nar in your draft for Washida, yeah, you probably have to ban Silas because that is like Silas hijack target number 1 in the meta right now. It's a very common response in the LCK and the LPL. Pick Silas into Nar. If you can skirt by getting some of those champions with less impactful ultimates or ultimates with 0 AP scaling, maybe you leave it up, but Dasher definitely very competent on it. So I can't keep waffling forever. I got to pick one. I say ban it. You got to get every advantage you can. Sure.
Fair enough. Then RMC, if you were to not ban it, if you were to go against Dodge's advice, and you were to let them have it through, what would you pick into Silas to give you a better opportunity?
Corki. If it's open, Corki. If they ban the Corki, you ban the Silas because Yu-Gi-Oh's pool doesn't have a good answer besides the Corki. You could pick the Zoe, I guess, but to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh's Zoe. I'm not a big fan of Zoe in general outside of Brazil. So, I think in the LJL teams kind of know how to play around it. And like we saw in the last game, yeah, sure, it has its strong points, but with the way the games go out, Zoe just falls off a bit too much late game.
Yeah, people used to say Korean Zoes were built different. Maybe Brazil Zoes are actually the one. You know?
Oh, it's not about the Zoes in Brazil. It's about everybody else around the Zoe.
That is fair. But going back a little bit to the whole Marble Dasher situation, it definitely feels like Dasher has stepped up a lot and really started to carry the potential of this team. And RMC, you kind of had a bit of an interesting fact before we went live about where the carry potential should really be for the team.
Yeah, because I think for SoftBank Hawks, while it's easy to look at the damage and say, oh, Dasher's been stepping up massively. I think there've been upgrades across all the positions, right? We talk a lot about Blank, as the sort of main shot caller and biggest playmaker of the team, highest kill participation of all players. But I want to look at the bot side, because you mentioned that Marble's been under a lot of scrutiny. The fact that, hey, he's doing less damage share, but somehow the team's winning. I don't think that's fair to Marble. Marble actually, interestingly, has the highest goal difference at 15 of all players, and that's with fasting Senna as well for 3 games. Marble has really leveled up this split, and sure, he's no Sangchu, he's no hybrid, he's not necessarily going to be that big star of the team, but when he can get these big leads in the bot lane, it really takes pressure off everyone else and enables Blank to start going to those other lanes to let Dasher be that big carry. And teams now have to pay attention in team fights. They can't just say, hey, let's all focus Dasher. No. Marble will rip you a new one. So then you've got to focus on Dasher and Marble at that point. And that really helps to distribute the damage and make sure that one of the carries stays alive.
Yeah, it definitely has been a really good step up for the Hawks. I think both of them have played a little bit better, and I think the Dasher has obviously looked maybe the more impressive out there, because obviously he is getting those big kills, he is getting those big plays, and especially on the side, has looked really, really strong. I want to kind of take us to, I guess, one of the key players of V3. So I feel like in Spring Split, Washidai was really the big I am here, I'm going to carry the game potentially, although it has been 150 more days since the last win for V3, but maybe today that does change. But going back to this, Washidai has been put on a lot of tanks. Do we want to kind of see him move off of the tanks and onto the carries, or do you actually think, you know what, the Orns, they are kind of doing a better job? Dodge, what's your take on this one?
I don't think Washidai is an exceptional top laner in really any regard. I don't think the team fighting's been particularly impressive. I don't think the laning's been particularly impressive. Definitely less so than Spring, where definitely he stood out as one of the shining points of V3. That's more so shifted to the mid lane here in summer for Yu-Gi-Oh! So I would say stay the course with the tanks. I mean, Ornn offers so much into a draft. I mean, if you can get Ornn as much as possible with the long range engage, so much safety in lane, very hard to move, and just the scaling he offers to the rest of the carries with those ornaments, you're almost guaranteed to luck into a win at some point, which granted we've expected V3 to do by now, and they've come close a couple times and haven't been able to convert. But I definitely say stay true, stay on the path you're on, at least as far as top lane goes.
Yeah, you'd hope that you'd luck into a win at some point. And RMC, are you feeling a similar vibe? Do you say, you know what, keep the tanks going? Or are you maybe saying, you know what, maybe we could see some other picks? I feel like things like Gwen haven't really been played as much from the LJL, but have still been strong.
Yeah, I'm with Dodge on this one. I'm not sure what to make of Washidai right now. He hasn't looked great, and I'm not really sure what he looks best at right now. Like with Yellow Yoshi, we know he looks best at tanks. It's simple, right? Like if you lose, you're still graceful outside of your lane. With Washidai, his tanks haven't impressed me. So yeah, I think Ornn's probably your safest bet. He's only played 1 game of it against CGA. Still got absolutely run over by the Olaf in that situation. But yeah, it's probably still your safest bet. So I'll agree with Dodge there. I'll say just go for the Ornn for Washidai. Don't play around him. He's really not been the focus of the V3 team this split at any rate.
Ornn and Sejuani, baby.
Man, I didn't want to see the Sejuani, man. Sejuani hasn't really cut it for me in the LJL. Like Ebby Sejuani, maybe.
Well, actually, I think the Sejuani in the jungle actually look pretty good. But we are going to see what they decide to lock in very shortly. We're going to go into pick and ban. Infinite Dodge RMC. Is this V3's first win? Let's find out.
Thank you so very much, J-Real. And I was giving the camera a big old thumbs down there. I feel like SoftBank Hawks have leveled up so much coming into summer here. They still look a little bit discoordinated at times, RMC, but the individual play from everybody has definitely been a step up.
For sure. You know what? But then if Axis could win earlier, maybe V3 can improve the same way, make something happen. For now, though, the ban's coming through, and Hawks not risking anything. They banned the Corki and the Swain. They recognize that Yu-Gi-Oh's the biggest carry for V3, and they're just slamming ban after ban on him.
Yeah, the Wukong going to be the final takeaway from V3. So what is left in that first pick blue side pool? Zeri always pops up to my mind, but it's LJL RMC,
no.
so they're going to be one Gnar.
Oh, I hate this so much, Dodge, that teams do this. And this is probably the only situation in which I'm kind of okay with it. Because you know that V3 has been doing this, actually. They've been B1ing Gnar. And it's terrible, but it's Washida's best champion, I guess, by a long shot. So Hawks, by doing this, they're denying it away. And sure enough, V3, they go with the Sejuani instead. It's not a blind Sejuani. I'm still not a fan of this particular matchup. Yes, you can punish it, but it requires coordination with your jungler. And so far from V3, we've not seen that topside.
No, not at all. It does feel a bit defeatist to me to lock in that Sejuani. Obviously still a jungle flex, but more so than not been going into the top lane in the current meta, and very rare you see a Sejuani beat a Gnar in lane. I think the only time I've seen it happen was Nuguri piloting that Sejuani. But the response here from the Hawks is to the AD carry pickup of V3 is to get the AD carry of their own, and we're talking about Axis managed to pick up a win today. We're seeing a similar setup. It's a Felios for V3 against Jinx. Maybe. Do you have the hopium?
I mean, it's just go versus Marble, so we'll have to see how that one goes for now. Hawks picking up the Poppy here, and this one's probably for Blank. Kinatsu, not really known as a big tank player for the most part, whereas Blank has already had 3 games of Poppy here. And I love it when you see, Sejuani already picked up here, yet denying the engage to follow up. Granted, Steadfast Presence isn't going to stop necessarily the Glacial Prison from coming through, but it will stop any sort of follow-up from the rest of the team. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Trundle is the lock-in for V3 to round off the first phase. They have a lot of beef. They have a lot of frontline there, and they have a carry. They have a central core of this composition built out. What do you want to see them do here in the second ban phase to protect and set up for rounding this composition out?
Okay, so for Hawks right now, they're looking for support as well as mid lane here. I think for support, I like to see something defensive that can work for the Jinx here. Maybe something like a Tahm Kench, or maybe even like the Rel, which Lina does play so well here. And for V3, you're looking for your mid lane and support as well. So a similar situation. I would like to see almost secondary engage from V3 in that support role right now. Just because that is a Poppy and you kind of have to play around her. And as we said before, Trundle isn't the best for engage. So secondary there. In terms of just mid lanes right now, V3, you've banned the Corki, you've banned the Swain, you've banned the Zoe. The only thing we've seen Yu-Gi-Oh play besides those 3 champions is a Lissandra. And I don't think Lissandra is good here. So maybe you go back to the Galio that he's used so effectively back in the academy scene?
Could very well be the pickup. It does feel a little bit damage light at that point when you do pick up your third sort of tanky frontliner, but things really thinned down in this mid lane pool. They're treating mid lane with the same reverence and respect we see most teams pay to 80 carry in the ban phase. We'll see what V3 takes blind here, who they will save the counter for. It's either going to be support or mid lane, you'd have to feel, unless they're doing some weird Trundle flexing.
Yeah, and you should just be picking a support here if you're V3. Yeah, I think Tahm Kench, really good. It pairs well with the Aphelios there, and you're denying it away from the Jinx and Rhina, more importantly. And then you just save counter pick for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because he has been your big shining star. And for the Hawks here, this is the rougher one to try and guess, because Dash has been such a good carry that's hard to say what he might go. I mean, most likely, the Azir blind is what we've been seeing a lot. The Victor's been taken off the table, and you do need some sort of magic damage to come through.
Yeah, Azir also banned out, so they're really thinking on it. They're going to pick up their support first, going to get that Rakan to pair up with Marble down there for Rhina. But the curious thing is, a lot of mid laners off the table. Is it an Ahri angle? Maybe? What's even left to attack at this point?
Oriana, for Hawks, if you want to just go straight team fight here, you do have multiple tools to bring that in. Silas blind here, Dodge. This one, I don't know about this one, Chief. I mean, yeah, you've got a great ult to steal with Subjugate, as well as the Glacial Prison, but blinding Silas is an invitation to be punished. We did talk about it on the desk, though. Yu-Gi-Oh's champ pool isn't the best into this champion. Funnily enough, I don't know if Yu-Gi-Oh can punish. I mean, Cassiopeia would be a great pickup here. He has played it once before in spring.
Yeah, Cassia would be a huge pickup here, but instead going to go for the traditional sort of I don't know what to play in mid lane pick. It feels like Ori is that jack of all trades that teams love to slot in when there's a lot of mid lane focus. And I don't know if that's going to be up to snuff for taking down the Silas, as you point out.
Yeah, I mean, for Hawks here, if you want to just go Ori blind, just because you don't know what to pick, that's one thing. But I feel like if you pick Ori as a counter pick, that's a problem. Because Oriana is great in terms of she doesn't have bad matchups. But she also doesn't have many matchups where she is the definitive hard counter here. So I do feel like for V3, it is a little bit of like, okay, we got nothing better here. We're just going with the Ori blind. It's a solid composition, Dodge. I mean, I ain't complaining about it, but it is relying very heavily on execution now. I feel like there's a lot of weight on dress codes of Philios here to be able to perform, because Oriana, you get one shockwave, that's kind of it. If you whiff it, everything just falls back onto your AD carry at that point.
Aye, that is how it goes, and you never want to hear the words, it's up to execution now, when it does come down to V3. So my hopes are not high, I have to admit here, but we will see what they can manage to do. We did just see an Aphelios clawback victory from the Jaws defeat in game number 1 of the day. Hopefully V3 feeling a little bit of that spirit as we do get on into game 2. Going to be an uphill battle for sure, though.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a lot about the lanes this game here, Dodge, because of just the way it kind of works out here. V3 wants to team fight, but they've struggled traditionally to really get out of the laning phase without suffering some losses. When they have gone off the laning phase, it's usually off better lane assignments. And right now, I'm not seeing a lane where I'm looking at V3 going, oh, this is a winning lane for them. Bot lane is kind of a handshake. Mid lane, I'm favoring the Silas a little bit here. If anything, oftentimes we see Silas picked into the Oriana. Oriana will bully Silas in the first couple of levels, but the moment Silas hits that level 3, level 4 mark, he can start engaging and reaching back on that Ori. Top side as well, Gnar, I think heavily favored in the early levels here. So V3, it's going to be rough for them. And the Trundle from game 1 has not inspired me to have much faith in this pick for the early game.
Yeah, that is definitely a clear-cut weakness. These teams keep gravitating towards Trundle. I don't like it a whole lot. It's short range. It doesn't really add anything in its own presence, right? Like, as a counter pick into something like Ornn or Sejuani, it offers the Subjugate into these heavy resist generating champions and really gets unkillable, but I don't understand the fixation we have on Trundle in the pro meta right now. We'll have to see if Unica can prove me wrong as we're into game. Just a little bit of a stare down. No action going to be brewing early. No early invades or anything like that.
Yeah, interestingly, Blank, did he? Yeah, Blank actually did get the ward down. So they're just trying to track where the Trundle is. You pick the Trundle into the Poppy to win that 1v1, right? The fact that you can steal stats away from that Poppy as well. So as the Poppy here, you kind of want to avoid the Trundle early on. You have the better ganking compared to Trundle ganks. So it's a lot about just positioning here, and especially for Blank as a player for the Hawks, because we mentioned that he's got the highest kill participation at about 84 point something, almost 85% here. But what that really means for the Hawk is that the more information you give Blank, the better he can shot call for the team as a whole here. So I do love that they're trying to track Unica right away, since that will be the most critical part for V3, the one player who can affect the most lanes.
Yeah, definitely going to be a lot on that Troll's shoulders. We do actually see Blank picking up that phase rush as well. So we saw some early game invade shenanigans with a Trundle into a Wukong last game that went all right for the Trundle, but then that pressure was never really utilized going forward. We'll have to see if Unica can break that pattern, but Blank in a good position to get on out of dodge if that does wind up going down.
Yeah, and already in the bot side, we're seeing, interestingly, Rhina positioning aggressively and getting punished for it on this Rakan. You have to keep in mind, Rakan, great engaged champion, but not the typical engaged tank that you see in the bot side. So these trades out with Tom Kench, definitely not favoring them. And again, Dodge, we're getting a pause to start this series.
Yeah, it's a paused up kind of day, I suppose. Got to keep us on the edge of our seats. Are V3 going to take this one home? We'll just have to wait and find out. Definitely going to be. There's no easy or kind way to phrase it, right? I keep trying to find diplomatic ways of framing the situation for V3. They have looked very, very poor, especially recently. They came out strong at the beginning of the split. They looked like they'd improved a little. It looked like it was just a matter of time before they finally took a win. And I think that CGA game really was the killing blow to the spirit of this team. But we will see what they can do early, going back to those early trades that we did have in the bot lane, at the very least. Dress code looking competent in terms of understanding lane states and what he has the power to do, level 1, that green tealish kind of gun, whatever you want to call it. Caitlyn range gun. So
Caliber.
You can't let Rakan just walk up on you. Punish him. Do something, V3.
Yeah, and to be fair, V3 haven't just lain over and died, right? They're fighting back. They're scrapping. One of the reasons why they have such a low KD ratio is because they keep trying to fight. So if anything, we are expecting them to scrap back. The problem is picking the right fights, because you can't just keep fighting. If you lose and then you keep fighting from there, it's only going to get worse. And I think that's been V3's problem for the most part here. So we'll have to see, if they're able to do that. And the other thing too is, of course, now you pick the Orianna for Yu-Gi-Oh. We mentioned before that he's got really low kill participation. And I don't think that's Yu-Gi-Oh's problem. I think that's V3's problem. They're not fighting around him. If you do that with an Orianna, you've got major problems. That shows a lack of understanding of game and champions from V3. They still choose not to fight around Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, definitely so. It's going to be Dasher going in, actually. I was about to comment about how Yu-Gi-Oh really bears the brunt of the burden here when it comes to finding this first W, if they can do it against SoftBank Hawks, but Dasher, almost preemptively reading my mind, says, no, I've hit level 3. I'm going to start to make this man's life hell. I'm not going to give him any sort of carry angle.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting, because early on, Silas does struggle against the Orianna, or should, and yet we see Dasher up, 9 CS, 8 CS right now, doing it the only way Silas can, by threatening the Orianna with all-ins repeatedly here. So Dasher playing this really, really well already, and I guess that's why Dasher's been such a big force for the Hawks, that big carry, because as much as Blank has maybe been the big playmaker, he's certainly not bringing enough damage to carry these fights.
No, not at all. And you know what? That's fine. We're in a durability update meta here, RMC. You can put your jungler on the Poppy. You can assign him the tank duty. Heck, DFM last split was the king of putting their jungler on the tank and saying, okay, Steel, you're on Poppy duty. You're the setup for the carries. And that was a winning formula. So post 12-10, it's been even more winning. It's been a nice pickup for SoftBank Hawks, as they're having a much better summer than they did spring. And it's looking to continue here, as they already have about a kill's worth of a gold advantage at 4.5 minutes just from passively playing these lanes a little better.
Yeah, and most of that coming from that mid lane when you look at the CS, right? Like, that's the only lane with the significant CS differential. 3 CS in top and in bot, and in the jungle 4. That's 1 camp here. Interesting, though, for the bot side, that dress code has picked up an early call. So V3, we said, the one lane that maybe they could look to have something happen early was kind of this bot side. And now I don't think that's going to happen, because you buy call, that's less combat stats compared to what Marble has. And with those early boots from the Jinx as well, it's going to be so much easier to space and make sure that you can play around dress code's range and guns.
Yeah, definitely signals that it's going to be another resident sleeper early game. At least V3 wants it to be that way, as we see Yu-Gi-Oh take a pretty poor trade from Dasher there. Has free license to run rampant in the mid lane right now.
I'm happy that we've got Dasher here, because I don't want another snooze fest right now. And like you said, Jesco picking that up, not a good sign. But Dasher playing aggressive, That's a good side. Really early Dragon take from V3 here. It's not the setup that we normally see. They're just kind of brute forcing it. And it works. Blank, not in there in time.
Now he was looking for the steal angle with the cone, as now it might be a punish onto Unica in the back end. That's already the 6 for Dasher. Are you kidding me? The stolen shockwave going to force Unica's flash. It is a trade, though. So in the end, not the worst thing for V3.
No, and for Hawks, I almost feel like that was like the we gave Dragon up for free. We got to find something on the back end of this. I love that Dasher actually flashed forward aggressively, taking away that command shockwave when UGO is not 6 yet as well, going for that sombrero. It shows that Dasher's kind of feeling himself. And hey, if you're a Silas right now, that's exactly where you want to be, right? When you're in that confident position, like, I can do this. Even better when it actually looks to be true.
Yeah, and we see Blank capitalizing very well off the map state. Unica absolutely chunked out, forced to reset. That means free Wraiths going to go into the Poppy's pocket. Has a bit of a tempo advantage in the jungle as it stands right now. It's 500 gold, the lead for SoftBank Hawks, despite that first Drake going over. So going to be back into a little bit of that slow and steady pace now.
Yeah, and I said it last time, I'll say it again. I don't think First Dragon's that important. It's kind of bait. It can mess up your tempo. And I like that Blank is punishing for that here because, sure, yeah, you got one Dragon, the Infernal. But if I don't see some kills coming through, you know, in the next 5 minutes for Unica or for anybody on the fact of V3 here, then obviously that Dragon wasn't really worth taking. And my bigger question is for the Hawks here, great, you took away Raptors. That really doesn't mean much. What else can you get off of that here? Can you secure the Herald that's coming up in about 40 seconds here?
It's looking good on that front with Dasher. Hard winning lane right now. Has a lot of freedom to move around the map.
Yeah, and I still find it so odd that Dasher is winning this lane so hard right now. Keep in mind, not only is Ori on paper a good matchup, but Yu-Gi-Oh picked this champion saying that, hey, I got counterpick. This is R5. This is what you saved counterpick for. You went with Orianna of all things, and you're losing lane. That is not good by any means. Now, Blank to this bot side of the map has snuck in here.
Yeah, that pink was already disabling the stealth ward. Here comes Blank. Here comes the abyssal dive, though, from Hatel to try and escort some sort of retreat. It's successful enough, but that's double flashes burned for the bot lane of V3.
Yeah, and Herald just spawned here. We were talking about it, Dodge, and unfortunately, Blank just seems to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, going in aggressively for Hatel here.
Yeah, doesn't have any CC left to cancel the Abyssal Dive. Otherwise, that would have been the kill. But look at what this generates for the bot lane. Sure, the cross map is the Herald if Kanatu doesn't interrupt it, which he still might. But the plate gold that they're generating for their bot lane on the side of SoftBank Hawks is crazy right now.
Interestingly enough, the Hawks actually have the second highest gold difference at 15 of all teams, 994. They also have the lowest Herald percent at 22%. So the Hawks often do this where they're willing to trade the Herald to try and get that turret gold in the bot side. And I guess that partially contributes towards Marble's highest gold difference at 15 here. It's an interesting call. And I think if you can get 2 or more plates off that turret on that trade, it's worth it because you're taking gold now versus the potential of Herald gold. And for V3, now the pressure's on them to try and maximize. You already fell behind a little bit in the early game. Now you've got that Herald. What can you find with it? Because I feel like trading 2 plates for 2 wouldn't be worth the call.
No, I think that's a very astute observation. We see so many teams throw the game at first Herald, showing up with poor support timers where they don't have 6 as compared to the opposing member, right? We see a lot of throws happen around that Herald. And when you have double winning solo lanes, that Herald isn't taking a first turret, the first Herald anyway. It's only getting those 2 plates. So like you say, if you can guarantee that you're matching those 2 plates, there is no disadvantage to giving the Herald away, especially the tempo advantage generated for Marvel.
Yeah, and now, Dodge, it feels like we're going into full sleeper resident sleeper mode here because there's no objectives. Well, Mountain's coming up in a minute, 40 seconds here. But it's second Dragon. I don't know if teams are going to necessarily contest over this. Herald's down. Usually that's the one we're kind of watching for here. Unica, though, maybe going to make my hopes come true. Looking for this top side here. And Kanatsu, no rage here.
Yeah, didn't use the hop onto a minion either, so it's only the short dash. No Narbar yet. Starting to get there, but not going to come in time with the double dot on Unica. I don't know if the flash aggressively was necessary. I think he had time before that Narbar hit, but better safe than sorry. Gonna pick up first blood at 10 minutes here for V3.
Yeah, unfortunately, they won't be able to push in particularly hard into that top side turret. TP is up for Kanatsu, and now Black is trying to reciprocate in this bot lane here. Once again, they're not going to be able to find a kill, but they're zoning them out. Keeper's Verdict even being thrown out here to buy as much time as possible for plates in the bot lane.
This is like the most annoying style to play against for V3. I really feel for them because SoftBank Hawks have dedicated all of their resources essentially at this point to proxying bot waves, getting plates into Marble's back pocket, zoning your scaling AD carry, who's your one sort of beacon of hope in this game, away from getting to the power spikes. It's really, really frustrating for V3, I'm sure.
And when we're talking about carries, like Yu-Gi-Oh is already losing mid lane, and now suddenly Dresscode doesn't get to play the game. This is setting V3 so far behind in terms of where they want to be, and I love it from the Hawks here. They're correctly identifying, hey, who do we want to punish? And surprise, surprise, Dresscode, guess who's still in the bot lane?
Yeah, that's just going to be a dead Aphelios. Marble now getting on the board, equaling up this kill score, but the gold already firmly in the pocket of SoftBank Hawks as finally this Herald will come through, pick up at least 2 plates. There's a wave here. Maybe they'll push for more.
No, they have to be so careful here. Just and yeah, I mean, Dodge, that was a running out of time Herald. Like there was only a couple of seconds left on it, and they were just like, okay, we've got to throw it somewhere. Let's just go mid with it because we can't drop it bot. We did see topside as well. Kinatsu had to flash away from Washida in the 1v1. So the Sejuani pick, at least right now, is working out against this Gnar.
Yeah, any Sejuani pick that doesn't hard lose the early, definitely going to be a big beast frontliner come the late, but now we have the dance around the Drake. Hawks not going to overcommit onto this one. It's just the second Drake of the game. They have plenty of time, and they have plenty of opportunity to catch out Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Blank with the aggressive move, trading flash for flash. Definitely a trade you are willing to take 100% of the time.
Oh yeah, Hex Flash Poppy as well. Blank doesn't care. Blank's been so aggressive, and Yu-Gi-Oh has to use Shockwave right now to just try and clear the wave. Cannot sit there whatsoever, and more gold being funneled into Marble here.
This is wild. I mean, we talk about hybrid being like the definition of a team funneling their AD carry, but Marble has been the benefactor of everything this game.
Marble had better deliver come the mid to late game. I'm just saying, man, like the amount of gold they're giving. I'd love for them to show us the total gold values right now because I want to see how far up Marble is. It's not just Marble getting gold. It's Dresco being denied gold as well. Still has not gotten those 100 stacks on that call yet.
Yeah, they're looking for an engage angle aggressively, but it is the Kench, so when it doesn't connect, you can just waddle on away till the very next attempt. But now Dasher also looking to go aggressive. He knows Yu-Gi-Oh has no flash, doesn't connect on the chains, however, gonna have to back off for now.
I just wonder how long before that hijack cooldown comes back up in terms of being able to take that shockwave again, because I think when it's up, Yu-Gi-Oh might die here. Unica now looking mid.
Yeah, Moonlight Vigil right between the wickets. Not going to find anything at all. It's starting to feel really desperate for V3 as Dasher gets another opportunity to all-in Yu-Gi-Oh. Takes him down to about a quarter health. I mean, definitely in lethal range.
Yeah, and you can see Blank is just like, wait, what? I smell blood in the water. I'm coming down bot, guys. Yu-Gi-Oh, well played, backs out immediately. It's the safe call. It's the right call, but it's causing significant CS discrepancies here. We're seeing the biggest difference in CS be that mid lane, where we've not seen Blank really throw too much pressure. All the pressure's been in the bot lane. So Dasher is just hard winning this 1v1. And for V3, my questions, we touched on the junglers. Where is Unica? What is Unica doing on this Trundle right now? None of your lanes are experiencing much relief. And even in that top side where you got that one gank off, Washida has started to slip in terms of CS once again.
Yeah, it's the nature of the melee versus ranged matchup, right? Kanatu definitely going to be in an advantage state a lot of the time in that lane. Gives him safer access to the farm, just can naturally build up that lead that we do see on the gold graphs right now. But we have a bit of a fight brewing around the second Herald. I mean, good for V3. They show up. They zone back SoftBank Hawks. They're not willing to all in for this one. Again, conceding an objective, looking for the steal was Marble, but not going to find it. You remember that awful period of time, I think it was 2 seasons ago, where they buffed the Jinx Rocket damage to monsters, and it was like a guaranteed steal every time it connected?
Pretty much. Felt like it. And thankfully, they've capped it since then, because that was kind of messed up.
Oh, bad times. About as bad of a time as V3 has been having in this game. Despite the fact that they're running the clean sweep on objectives right now, RMC, it feels like they're getting choked out in this game.
Yeah, and these Heralds really don't feel like they're worth it for the most part. I mean, granted, this time Dasher doesn't get a ton of plates in that bot side, doesn't get a ton of damage down, but it just doesn't feel like it's converting into anything. 2v1 onto Blank here.
Yeah,
Nice.
Kanatu just wasn't available to offer any support there. It's often the supports we see getting picked out looking for the deep vision, but in that case it was the jungler. But now we have another fight, a Bruin. This Glacial Prison has a gnarly AP ratio, but it doesn't do anything. Dasher's solo killed by Washidai.
Okay, this just feels like people forgetting how Sejuani works. Guys, Sejuani works great into melees here. She's very disruptive for your combos. You need to respect that mid lane. Here's that Herald being put to good use. The first one didn't find much. This one cracks a turret. And for V3, much needed gold. The problem, though, is, look, they get the turret here, Dodge, but they're losing so much health just trying to walk back out. And it just feels like it's not really working. And if Hawks just group up and push that mid lane here, I don't know if V3 can really properly defend that turret.
Yeah, it definitely... Oh, before we get to that thought, is Blank going to find him in the bush in time? No! Oh, not even close, baby. Washidai out by the skin of his teeth.
Well played. No fear there. No hesitation. Completed the back. And I thought for a second I should have cut in my head 8 seconds. But yeah, time stretched a little bit there. Washington's safe. Dragon coming up in 10 though. And this one the Hawks will contest. They've given up all the objectives up to this point here, but usually the Hawks will start to contest for that third Drake onwards. And you can see that tempo-wise, they're the ones first to the area. They're the ones setting up the vision, and Yu-Gi-Oh needs to rejoin the team. And Orianna flank is not a tool that works. If Orianna tries to flank, she'll just get picked off instead. TP's coming in.
Yeah. SoftBank Hawks more than ready, willing, and able to tumble. The rocket not going to connect. It was a nice little gobble from the Kench, but get the keeper's verdict to even things back out. It looked like it was going to go sour for a second for Hawks, but they had that big tool in their back pocket, and they will contest that third Drake. They are now on the board, but we have more action of brewing. Washidai just has no follow-up. There's nothing left. Kanatu...
He's stuck in there. I mean, he is flash. He doesn't want to burn it. Okay. V3 not even going to try and punish him.
They don't force him to burn the flash.
Yeah.
It's been a rough one.
You had the timer on the jump, too. You saw him jump in mini-nar form, and you know he doesn't have it up and available just yet. And they didn't even try and look for the punish on Kanatsu. But you know what, Dodge? I'm still happy for V3 there because they were winning the fight. And Blank had to force the disengage. If you look at all their health bars as well, Lina was almost dead. So for V3 right now, they're still in a pretty decent position. They can still look for these team fights. I had thought that maybe they don't win the 5v5 right now. They didn't look that great, but that stat check right there just showed us that the Hawks aren't online just yet.
No, not at all. And I mean, look, it's a 2K lead at 18. That's definitely something. That's almost a whole legendary item. If you look at Jinx, she is up the rapid fire longsword to the Aphelios Zeal. That's where most of that gold lead is held as Dasher. Going to get clipped by the shockwave, but the wall sort of doing some work for him there. Getting stuck on the terrain means he doesn't get pulled back to the center. That might have been a saving grace of that play there.
Yeah, I thought Unico would try a little bit harder, but they recognized that, hey, there's people in rotation. Hetzel, though, you knew!
Oh, it's so sad. I mean, this is just the life of a support player. You have to go and look for the vision, but trying to find the turnaround.
Oh, good
Blank channeled the keeper's verdict, but not going to let it fly, so it does go on that abbreviated cooldown. I don't know, it feels like even when V3 finds something, as Marble just cleanses right through that glacial prison, even if the material advantage is a net gain for them, it just feels like psychologically they're losing a lot of these engagements.
Yeah, and we feel that knowing their record here. I wonder if the players feel that way as well, right? Because obviously, as players, you never want to be negative. In order to win, you got to be confident. You've got to have the mindset that, hey, I can win this right now. And at least their play so far for V3 shows that they're still being proactive. They're not sitting back. They're not being defeatist. They're not just free skilling here. Dasher getting clipped by yet another shockwave. That cooldown feels awfully short right now, Dodge.
Yeah, it's a nice little bit of chip damage, I guess. I was more surprised, not just the cooldown is so low, but that the damage was so slight with a completed Ludens now going to be going towards the needlessly large rod is Yu-Gi-Oh, but no tank items on Dasher. Leandry's full damage, right? But that D-Shield, I guess enough to shrug off these shockwaves like they're nothing.
Yeah, and that's not a great sign because Dasher's not the tankiest guy on the Hawk side. I mean, only Marble and Rhina are actually squishier. So we'll have to see how effective this shockwave is. And that puts, once again, the pressure onto Dress Code, on this Aphelios, who we haven't seen too much of here. Unica running into 3 alone here. Has enough health to get back out, but V3 not looking the most coordinated right now in terms of what they want to do as a team.
Yeah, that is definitely so. I guess I do appreciate the guts coming out from Unica there. I mean, act confident, and maybe the enemies will assume you know something they don't. And it looked like it kind of worked for a second, right?
Sure.
SoftBank Hawks wasn't quite sure what to do. They take one step back, then they're like, wait, this guy's by himself, punish him, but then he just walks out. It's a complicated and beautiful mental dance between these teams right now because the action hasn't been high-paced enough, so it's a lot about the bluffs at 20 minutes.
Well, not for lack of trying. Teams are looking here. Even on this play, you can see that Rhina and Blank have already started moving up here. They're covering, they're shading Dasher, and the turret will finally go down. Unica once again just standing there, just kind of checking people. And Hetzel again getting caught out.
Oh, man, that is a shame. Marble gets excited. Just going to clear up this wave, and that should generate everything they need to take the last of the tier 1s here for the side of SoftBank Hawks. Unica trying to back up the play, but Marble's so strong right now.
Yeah, 2.5 items, with that armor shred as well right here. The penetration, you've got to respect that. And for V3, thankfully for them, Hetzel actually died when he did. I know it sounds bad to say that thankfully he died. Ooh, flash away from Dasher to stay alive. But if he died later, it would affect their dragon takes.
Yeah, that's a great wombo combo CC setup, but it wasn't enough to kill Dress Code immediately. Unfortunately, once again, the Moonlight Vigil not going to find its targets. Now the TP way too late coming out from Washidai, or rather Yu-Gi-Oh there. So tier 1 just gets taken, and this dragon should be next.
Yep, remember how I was talking about how, good thing Hetzel died when he did? Yeah, bad thing that Unica died when he did, and Dress Code, because this is a free dragon now for the Hawks. And granted, it's Cloud. It's not the end of the world, but I do think Cloud's actually kind of risky to give up to the side of Hawks when you've got Silas looking to get in there, when Rhina is going to be set up with all that movement speed to get perfect ultimates off, and Marble as well is going to be nigh untouchable in these fights when you're already at a range disadvantage.
Yeah, big scary nightmares. I run out of superlatives and adjectives to describe just how hopeless it feels to watch V3 games a lot of the time, as we do have a replay of this dive coming on through.
Yeah, and this is a 3v2 situation that the Hawks are setting up. They know Rhino is off on the side looking, but they don't see Blank here. And this is confidence from Hawks to know that, hey, we've got enough damage. And the target selection as well, right onto Dress Code, because he's so squishy. You see how quickly he goes down there. That's what enables the dive. In a 2v3, with the increased damage that turrets do, it can get risky. But once you cut it down to that 3v1 there, sure, they do lose Blank on the back end of it, but it's still so easy for them to just clean up.
Yeah. It's been a tale of two halves, I feel like, so far. V3 showing up in the first half of the game, as they so often do. Despite some less than favorable mid lane happenings, they still managed to pick up 2 Drakes. They were up 3 kills to 1. But SoftBank Hawks, they bid their time well, and it's looking like a bit of a play coming out, but the pillar just not going to connect on the Dasher.
I'm going to be honest, Dodge. I actually don't feel like V3 had that good an early game. I think Hawks seeded all the objectives, and that is just the way the Hawks like to play. And so V3, I don't think have been in control of the game. I think they've been perpetually on the back foot. Great play from Washidai individually to get some of those early kills. But ever since then, Unica's sitting on 3 kills, but I don't know how much of that was really him being proactive versus how much of it is, the Hawks making certain plays and being willing to sacrifice certain things to make it work.
RMC, I don't disagree with you in that assessment whatsoever. It almost feels completely disrespectful from SoftBank Hawks that a lot of what V3 was able to pick up was more or less them saying, it's V3, let them have it. We are going to win late. We're scaling up Marble. At this point, you got to find something to say about V3 though, right? Like, they got some Drakes. Yay! It's like patronizing. It's like going to a child's recital. Like, yeah, they're playing the recorder poorly, but they're up there playing it. God dang it!
True, and I'm right now, rather than looking at what V2 have accomplished, I'm still waiting for them to do something in the mid game. You picked the Orianna, that's a mid game champion, and once again, no proactivity. Having to burn the flash defensively means they won't have that. I really want to see Washington unlock from this side lane. Like, sure, you're doing well into Kanatsu, you're doing decently into Kanatsu, you're down 50 CS, that's not great. But you pick the Orianna. This is a team fighting composition. Burst damage falls off late, even before durability patch, much less with durability patch now. So Washington and Yu-Gi-Oh need to be together. They need to make something happen. And Hawks, it's not like Hawks haven't been grouping up in positions where you can land a glacial prison on multiple members.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like V3 are never going to pull the trigger here. You take a look at these CS numbers, both solo lanes past the 10 CS a minute mark, and look at Marble, 326 CS at 26 minutes. I mean, SoftBank Hawks just haven't felt challenged at all this game. It's really starting to look hopeless, man. Like, V3, just do something.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I actually don't like about the Hawks style of play. It's very methodical, but it's very plodding. Like, most of the teams, you'd see them try and force something here. Rhina, is this the force we're looking for? Maybe. They find Hetel.
I mean, they've been ahead for so long. They should just be able to run these fights. But if you look at Dasher down to half health, but isn't afraid to go in with that stolen shockwave, going to have to go into the stopwatch, however, because it's a fight on two fronts. But Washidai going to get alley-ooped back by the Gnar. So Marble going to pick up another one. It's 2 for nothing so far. Dasher, I didn't see how, had to use that flash, but did get out of that situation 1v2. So getting out scot-free to SoftBank Hawks, I thought for sure Dasher was going to get punished there at least.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it again. V3 need to be proactive. They need to be the ones pulling the trigger. Because great responsive play, but it's just never enough to finish anybody off. Blanket solo, Dasher solo, but you can't quite push through. And that burst, I fear that window for Yu-Gi-Oh's Orianna might already be closing here. I mean, we're 28 minutes in. The burst early didn't feel great. We saw on that Ludens, even now with the Shadow Flame, still not ideal. And the way the fight starts out as well, it's Hawks just deciding, you know what, we can pull the trigger, we can do this. And I already think Ketel wasn't the ideal target. It was just all they could find. The shockwave from Yu-Gi-Oh once again on Dasher, kind of doing nothing. And Dasher ends up zoning out multiple members alone. Yeah, he had to flash, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it was, as we see a last-ditch effort, it feels like, coming out from V3 to get to that pit and contest, but not going to mean very much. Just going to get zoned all the way back to that line of scrimmage behind the red buff pit. So that's a nice, easy Baron take for SoftBank Hawks. They have a nice purple armor buff to go and collect their Soul Point Drake as well. And then target's probably going to be on the base.
Yep. Yeah, you got to take those structures. And Hawks have been taking it really slow for the most part. With taking these turrets here, they've not been taking anything risky. They're just going with that slow split push. So with this Baron here, if they want to go back to that 1-3-1 with Dasher and Kanatsu on the side lanes here, that's still going to be very effective. And for V3, we were saying that they had to pull the trigger earlier. It's even worse now, because if you don't, you're just going to lose turrets on multiple lanes as well. The wave clear from them isn't great. They're relying very heavily on dress code, because Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know, and the damage on this Orianna feels like it's been transferred to the cooldown reduction. Like, lots of shockwaves, but very little damage from the shockwaves. And even the wave clear, I'm not expecting to be great into burned up minions.
Yeah, quantity over quality for Yu-Gi-Oh, who's hitting what would have been a huge spike if it came through at 20 minutes with that Luden Shadow Flame. 29 minutes doesn't really feel as impactful.
No, not at all here. And for Hawks, interesting. They're not really going for the 1-3-1. They're just playing on two lanes here on mid and top. It's more closer to a 4-1 where Kanatsu is currently holding the 1. And V3 are just completely caught out of position. Look at how quick Marble is taking this, and the response is so slow.
I mean, what is this pathing Unica just absolutely getting decimated? Also, it was already going to be the Devourer coming out from TK, so dress code out of options to keep himself safe. Marble's just running rampant on this fight. I mean, how long How long do we have to keep watching it happen? V3, once again, we said they wouldn't just roll over and die, but this is absolutely what they did in this game. Is they find a shockwave, but it's Reina into the backline to set up the Gnar, and this is just going to do it. Its health bar is getting chunked out left and right. Dress Code playing from inside the fountain, trying desperately to set something up, but it just means nothing because in the end, SoftBank Hawks pick it up easily.
Well, Dodge asked the question, how much longer? 54 seconds. That was how much longer from when you asked. Yeah, the Hawks, they played it well. They played it methodical. There's really not much more to say than that. The Hawks were just in control from start to finish. And for V3, yeah, I'm actually really surprised. This is the first time I've really felt like they just rolled over and gave up. Like, zero proactivity. I don't think we saw a single time where Washidai kicked off the fight with the Sejuani. Like, as far as I'm concerned, you don't pick the Sejuani for lane. You're picking it for team fights. So, where were
he was pinned in the side lane the whole time? Like, what is happening? What are you guys doing? I'll save the anger. We'll get J Real's take on it after a short break here. That was a frustrating game to watch from V3, but we will give you the full breakdown on why that was after a short break here. We'll be right back.
Game number 2, and it is all over. V3 there, not going to be able to pick up another win, and it's going to be the Hawks. Well, I say another, they haven't picked up any wins yet, as we do see the 154 days come through. The Hawks staying strong, but I will say a relatively slow game of League of Legends, if that was maybe even an understatement. That was a pretty slow pace from both teams there. Let's start on the lighter side for now. The Hawks picking up the dub here. Let's get up their draft. RMC, in general, were you impressed with what the Hawks did today, or are you also a bit like, actually, you know what, this is the team you should really be dominating, maybe you should have done better?
Hawks have been a hard team for me because I feel like good teams should play faster. When you've got a lead, you should be closing games out. The Hawks don't play that way. I think this game is quintessential Hawks, where they got to play exactly the way they wanted to. They gave up the early objectives. They go for that mid to late game, and then they play to their power spike. When they get the power spike, you saw how quickly they closed the game out. So, you know what? Yeah, I guess it is impressive in a way, the way the Hawks can close things out. But it still concerns me a little bit that this is the third place team in the LJL, and it feels like there's such a big gap between them and the first two.
Yeah, no, it does indeed. And V3, the gap between them and 7th is starting to feel like it's growing a little bit longer. I want to get the draft up here because I feel like this is a key part of what we were talking about in terms of it's not helping them, you know? I don't think that they are playing to their strengths. We talked about how good Yujo has been, how much damage he's putting out, how much of a carry he's really been for this side, and then they last pick him Oriana, which is not really what we want to see. Do you know what I mean? It's not the highest damage. It's not particularly great into Silas. I feel like the Corki, yes, it was banned, okay, so you can't pick the Corki, but there are other picks that you could maybe go for that just do a little bit more than the Oriana. Dodge, what were you feeling about the draft from V3?
I think RMC said it best over the break, which was, to paraphrase, essentially, Oriana on R5, you're essentially giving up. Oriana is not a counter pick, generally. Maybe in some very specific matchups, Oriana is a favorite pick, but generally Oriana is a blind pick. If you're going to pick Oriana, pick it early in the draft. Use your red side advantage for something. Get yourself an advantageous counter pick. But V3, it felt like they just rolled over and died right in draft as soon as that Oriana came in. And, you know, it doesn't even... I don't know. I'm very upset with V3 after this game. They've shown so much more in previous games. I know they can try. I don't know if it's fatigue at this point with how long it's gone without a win, but the draft was the least of the problems, but it was still pretty glaring, especially that Orion R5.
Yeah, and you said at one point you mentioned line of scrimmage in the cast, and to be fair, it feels like V3. You know what? Go watch Green Bay. Go watch Green Bay. Go watch some old Aaron Rodgers. Just throw the Hail Mary, bro. Just throw the Hail Mary. See if it goes. Throw it up there, put it in the air, and see if someone come and catches it. I feel like they kind of need to just stop playing this, in my opinion, like safer mentality of game and just be like, look, let's go out there. Let's put on a show. Let's see if we can really find a weakness and just take home a game. I feel like right now they're playing slow, or they're kind of trying to match the meta, or so right now it just doesn't feel like it's working for them, and I feel like they need to just switch it up, add some new spices into the pan and see if it makes a great dish. We'll have to find out. But RMC, from this matchup in general, are you feeling any sort of different way about either of the teams, or are you saying, you know what, this is kind of what I expected?
For Hawks, this is exactly what I expected. For V3, I am getting really worried for them because I had already said, before that I feel like they're coming downhill. That they spiked, around, day 5-ish, like in the middle of the first round robin, and since then it does feel like they're coming down a little bit, and that's not okay. I can have hope in a team. I mean, I'm an Axis fan, man. Like my team struggles immensely, but I have hope for them because there's fluctuation. V3 hasn't looked that way, and my biggest problem with V3 this game is that Hawks and Axis are the two slowest teams in the league for the early game. If you can't find an engage on the Hawks with this composition you have, what are you going to do against every other team in the league? You've got one more shot with Axis. If V3 pull the same thing with Axis, they might just set a new record for most consecutive games lost.
Yeah, it could be getting to that time, but who knows? Maybe we'll find out. I think the Hawks are playing once again, another win, still performing really well, staying third of the table, looking competitive as always. V3, maybe we see some adjustments made sooner and rather than later would be preferential. But that is going to be the end of the game 2 for today. We are going to be saying goodbye to Dodge and goodbye to RMC. It's been really nice having you guys both on the stream. But we are going to be welcoming in Initialize and Recollect to take us through the final 2 games. We're going to go for a short break. We'll be back with DFM Rascal Jesters.